So this is lesson 1.6 in elementary algebra, multiplication of real numbers. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at multiplying positive numbers and negative numbers and putting them together. And the key thing as far as multiplication goes is multiplicating numbers that have the same sign will always give you a positive answer. So notice these are two negatives, so they're the same sign, so we get a positive. Two positives, same sign, gives you a positive. If the signs are different, and it doesn't matter what the signs are, you're going to get 15, but you're going to get a negative because we have one negative there. If we put the negative on the 5, we're still going to get 15, and because we have one negative, we're going to get a negative 15. So, and one thing that helps when students have a whole list of problems to do, to multiply, and sometimes the book will do this. We'll make that a 3. I don't care what number it is. 4 times negative 15. You can count the number of negative signs in this multiplication, and if the number of multiplication signs is an even number, there's 4 of them, 4 is an even number, your answer will be positive. If the number of negative numbers there is odd, if there were only 3 there, like if this were a positive 15 instead of a negative, then your answer would be negative. And then you don't have to worry about the negatives and positives. You just multiply 3 times 5 times 2 times 3 times 4 times 15, get your answer, and just put the sign on there. You don't have to worry about the signs at all. So that makes it real helpful when you have this long list of numbers that you're trying to do. Alright, so let's continue on here and jump up to some examples. So example number 5 says if we have 8 times negative 3, we get a positive number. We get positive 24. If we have 5 times negative 7, we get a negative 35. Okay, one of the reasons I know, I have one negative sign, and 1 is an odd number, so therefore your answer will always be negative. Here, my number of negative numbers was 2, and that's an even number, and because it's even, it's going to give me a positive answer. So that bounces me up to problem number 11. Count the negative signs. There are 3. 3 is an odd number, so my answer is going to be negative. So then I just ignore the negatives and just take 5 times 3 is 15, 15 times 4 is 60, and I'm done. Alright, so let's look at number 12, because they're going to start putting some addition and subtraction in there together. So we have 4 times negative 3 plus 6 times negative 5 minus 10. Okay, we always do the multiplication first. Alright, so 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. 6 times negative 5 is negative 30, and notice I have two signs there together, so I'm going to put a parenthesis there to separate them. So now I have negative 12 plus negative 30. If the signs are the same, I add the numbers and put the sign on there. Minus 10. Okay, negative 42 minus 10, that's a little tricky sometimes, so I suggest making this into a plus and putting a negative there. Then I've got an addition problem. My signs are the same, so I add the numbers and put the sign on there. And that's a trick that you will use for a while until you get used to how to subtract numbers, especially when you're dealing with negatives. So I would suggest doing that because it always works and it keeps you from making your sign mistakes. Alright, let's look at 13. We have negative 2 and it's cubed. Alright, so one of the things, the definition of exponent says that if we have an exponent and a negative, we have to multiply whatever's in the parenthesis, the entire thing, times itself. And again, one of the things you can do is you can look at this number here, and if that's an odd number, you know your answer is going to be negative if there's a negative there. So then you just do 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8, and you're done. You get a negative on there. So if I look at number 14, it says negative 3 times the quantity negative 2, and we're going to cube it, minus 5, and we're going to multiply that by negative 4, and then we're going to square that. We're going to do our exponents first. Always do that. Remember PEMDAS. where you do your parentheses. That's supposed to be an E. Crappy E there. Okay. Exponents, multiplication, division from left to right. Doesn't matter which one you do first, but usually do multiplication. Addition, subtraction from left to right. Doesn't matter which one you do. As they come, just do them. Alright, so let's do our exponents. And I just kind of do one thing at a time. Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 is negative 8. Negative 5. Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. Negative 3 times negative 8, two negatives give you a positive. Minus 5 times 16, 16 is 32, 64, 74, 80. And then I'm going to make this into a plus problem because I don't want to subtract a bigger number from a smaller number, and it's easier to do that. I take the difference between 24 and 80 because the signs are different. I take the difference, and that gives me 56, and then I take the sign of the largest one and put it on my answer. Alright, let's look at number 15 then in our examples, and let's remember this PEMDAS stuff. It's pretty important. 6 minus 4 times the quantity 7 minus 2. Okay, my PEMDAS said I do the parentheses first, and I'm not going to do anything else. Then it says I do multiplication and division. So I'm going to do that. I'm not going to take 6 minus 4. I'm going to do my multiplication first. That's the rule. Now I'm going to change this into an addition problem. Now I can do my addition. And when the signs are different, you take the difference between the two and put the sign of the largest number on your answer, and you get negative 14. Okay, this next section has to do with multiplying fractions. When multiplying fractions, very basic, and you've done this forever, you multiply the numerators, you multiply the denominators, and then you try to reduce if you can. You can't reduce on this one. But what if one of my fractions was negative? Well, then the rule applies. A negative times a positive gives you a negative. If I have something like negative 6 times 1/2, I can, if it helps, make this into a fraction, multiply my top numbers together, multiply my bottom numbers together, put my negative on there. Since there's only one, my answer is going to be negative, and then I reduce it. 6 over 2 is 3. Now what if I have negative 2/3 times negative 3/2? I have an even number of negatives, so therefore my answer is going to be positive. I'm going to multiply my top numbers, I'm going to multiply my bottom numbers, and any number over itself will always be 1. And in this case it's positive because I have two negatives. Example number 19 says, Figure 1 gives the calories that are burned in 1 hour for a variety of forms of exercises by a person weighing 150 pounds. Figure 2 gives the calories that are consumed by eating fast foods. Find the change in calories for a 150-pound first person playing handball for 2 hours and then eating a Whopper. Okay, so this guy plays handball for 2 hours. Let's see. So if he plays handball for 2 hours, how much does he burn in 1 hour? He burns 680 calories in 1 hour. But if he's doing it for 2 hours, we're going to have to add those together or multiply by 2. So actually he's burning 1,360 calories in 2 hours. And then he goes and has a, what did we say? A Whopper. So he went to eat a Whopper. How many calories does a Whopper have? Let's see, a Whopper has 630 calories. So we want to know the net change in calories. So basically, the difference there in the calories that he had is going to be the difference between 1360 and 630, which is going to be 730 calories that he still burned. So even though he had a Whopper, he still used more calories playing handball than he ate, so he's good to go. Alright, so let's continue looking at some of these. Let's jump to number 22 in the exercises, and then we'll start a second video here. So 22 says if we have -2 times -1/2 x, and we're going to multiply those, what do we get? Well, we're going to make that into a fraction. Multiply our top numbers. -2 times -1 is +2. Multiply our bottom numbers. And we have 1x, or we don't even have to show the 1, we just get x. Alright, so we'll continue on with the second video then on 1.6.